Greak Memories of Azur is a game that has some beautiful aesthetics and animation, but is sadly another case where the UX, I think, tends to cause this game a lot of problems. But this is an action-adventure game, kind of a mix of 2D action platforming with the Lost Vikings style. You play as Grek and their two siblings, who are forced to flee from their island home due to a mysterious plague that is corrupting everything. And your mission is to basically gather your siblings and do the final supply run and repairs needed to get off the island, all the while trying not to die from a variety of monsters out to get you. Each sibling has different abilities. Grek himself is kind of like your standard action platformer star. He has a sword, he can double jump, dodge roll, etc. While his sister has the Super Mario Land 2 Peach hover power, and his older brother is kind of like your hardened warrior with a shield. Very much kind of like a Olaf from Lost Vikings, if Olaf was also a badass fighter. Now, the game mixes action and puzzle design, in that you'll be moving through the areas, fighting your way through the various enemies. Puzzles are always focused on how do you get your characters across each area. You'll start with Grek, and then you'll eventually unlock the other two as the game goes on. And the challenge is that each character can do different things. And in a lot of cases, you'll have to figure out how to get one character to a save point or beyond a puzzle to then open up a different route or do the puzzle in another way to get those other characters across. Now, there are side quests, or the majority of the quests are required, but there are hidden things for you to find, including health upgrades, buying items. You can also cook healing items at various stoves and campsites in order to get health back like that. In terms of the general gameplay, every character feels very responsive to move. Everyone has a different feel to it. Now, in terms of length, this game, I would say, is on somewhat of a short side. If you're playing it casually, maybe 5 to 6 hours, give or take. I believe the speedrun challenge is just under 3 hours. But with that said, I want to spend the majority of this video talking about where the UX breaks down with Grek, and important lessons for developers if they're trying to build a multiple character control based design in the future. So we're going to do that after this quick break, and as always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my following books. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. Grek is sadly one of those examples of a game whose inherent problems aren't necessarily known when you start playing it. When you're just beginning the game into like the first quarter of it, and you're just playing as Grek, it controls fine, there's really no issues with that segment. But once you get his sister and then eventually his brother, you start to realize some major limitations with the gameplay and the UI, and as well as the UX. So, the thing that Grek does is that you are required to switch between the three characters. You can't see the UI in the bottom left. That's being blocked by my lovely little camera there. But each character, again, has to be controlled both individually and in a group. You have a button that kind of, in a way, it kind of locks the characters to mimic your actions. So you press the jump button, everyone who's connected will jump. Everyone, when you move to the left, they'll all move to the left. It sounds good in theory, but here's the problem. As characters attack or perform special actions, they'll move out of alignment. And it's very easy, like let's say you're trying to do tricky platforming, for a character to kind of be just a little too far to the left or a little too far to the right of the other characters in the group, and they'll miss the platform, and then they'll fall. Or worse, they'll take damage. You see, here's where things get very nasty. Grek has no auto-save functionality. So, if you die, you are going back to your previous save. And while this doesn't sound bad in theory, there are a lot of ways that characters can die quickly. You see, each character in your party has an individual health bar. And if you have characters in a group and they all fall or they all get hit, everybody takes damage. There are no iframes or hyper armor here, or I'm sorry, super armor. So during a boss encounter or during anything where there's a lot of enemies, it's very easy to take damage or get a stray hit. And if one party member dies, the entire group is lost. And this becomes painfully frustrating in certain areas. There are enemies who can cloak or they teleport around and they shoot crossbow arrows that are actually homing missiles. And because of how easy it is to die, it makes it a huge pain when you're trying to solve puzzles, because enemies will tend to respawn in the same area even if you haven't left it. As another issue that I'm kind of surprised developers didn't think about, if you've been watching as I've been fighting enemies, you've probably noticed like a little like pinkish like glow that flies out that goes into our characters. That is a free health point, kind of like when you kill an enemy and they drop health. But you see, if you're controlling a party of 3, or even just 2, the health orb does not prioritize whoever has the lowest health. And even if you take a character and control them, it will only fly to the first character. So if, let's say, our shield guy here is in front, he's at full health, and your sister has 1 point of health left, most likely that healing orb is going to hit him and do nothing, while the sister is going to be 1 hit away from dying. And this is way too many times of how you're going to die in this game. And if you haven't been paying attention to these saves, you could lose a lot of progress. Over the course of playing, I believe I lost a good 50 minutes total of play due to dying several times and not hitting a save. I also, and this is also compounded by the fact that I actually had a game crash after a boss fight that was also on the harder side. And if I wasn't as calm and collected as people know me for, I probably would have rage quit the game easily if I had to repeat that section. And it's not good to have these kinds of UX issues in a game like this. Now, some of you are probably wondering this question, so let me answer it. There is no local or online co-op in Greak. You are required to control all 3 characters individually and simultaneously throughout the game. And that can certainly add to the frustration if you're not good with constantly character swapping and changing them around, because certain enemies are better or worse to fight with certain characters. The sister is the only character who has projectile-based damage, while your brother here has his shield and also has the highest health pool out of the entire group. And I do like some of the situations in this game. I like being able to kind of move all 3 characters through puzzles in different ways. It's a very interesting form of organic puzzle design. But for the majority of people who are going to play Greak, they're not going to see any of that, and they're just going to quit early. And the proof is in the completion rates, with about 60%, I believe, of the player base churning out within about an hour to 2 hours of play. Now, for those of you who did play the demo and remember the boss fight being very frustrating to fight, they have toned that fight down, and they've generally toned down most of the combat in Greak compared to that demo. But it can still be frustrating, even with pits and environmental hazards, for one unlucky jump or one unlucky encounter to force you to lose a lot of progress. So, with that said, I like Greak, but I feel like the game could have been better if it would have either made the whole party controlling a little bit more intuitive and kind of refined the UX, and kind of less of a focus on combat and more of a focus on puzzle solving and environmental interactions. It makes it a hard game to recommend, I'm afraid. Again, if you aren't put off by the frustration, I would say give this one a check, especially if you're interested in seeing games about controlling multiple characters at once. Because I feel like the developers were in the right neighborhood, but just didn't hit the target 100%. So, with that said, we're going to wrap up this review of Greak Memories of Azur here now. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you are new, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing. And if you'd like me to tackle your game in the future, please get in touch. Check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.